Eagle-eyed beachgoers at Morses Pond might have noticed that there's a new kid on the block with the arrival of a new weed harvester. A joint venture between the Town of Wellesley, the Natural Resource Commission, and the DPW, the weed harvesters are used throughout the summer to make sure the plant life in the water is controlled and the water is not only safe for swimmers, but is promoting pond life. I met with Brandon Schmidt from the Natural Resource Commission to discuss the new weed harvester and its importance to Morses Pond.
Sure, yeah. My name's Brandon Schmidt and I'm the director of the Natural Resources Commission.
What led the NRC to seek out a new weed harvester?
So the weed harvesting program is actually part of the overall comprehensive pond management plan for Morses Pond, which includes water treatment of the incoming storm water. When it begun, it involved a large dredging project on the northern basin. And then to deal with some of the rooted plant material, we employ a large weed harvester. So the program's been around for about 15 years, and the town had a weed harvester purchased through CPA funds back then, nearing the end of its life. So we recently asked the CPC to approve funding for a new weed harvester, which they did, which arrived this summer.
Tell me a little bit about the process of acquiring the new harvester.
Sure. So based on procurement rules, purchases of a certain size have to go out to bid. And I think in this case, there's really only a few companies who make harvesters like the ones we use here. We do have a smaller harvester as well. That was procured through the same process where we developed specifications, really in partnership with the Public Works. They're the ones who operate it. They develop specifications, what they'd like to see on the boat, and then we put it out to bid, and a company, in this case Aquarius, who's based out of Wisconsin, bid and won the bid and then began production.
Yeah. You have to ship it out.
Yeah, oh, wow. Yeah, it got three trailers, the boat, the trailer for it, and the conveyor, right. The offshore conveyor.
Okay, that's really cool. I didn't know. Yeah. That's great.
So the town also has a smaller harvester that was purchased primarily to address the similar issues with rooted plant material in some of the other town ponds, but it is also employed here at Morses Pond, and they can kind of run in tandem. So while one is operating, picking up, the larger one is operating, picking up plants, the other one can kind of run behind it and pick up any fragments that have come out. So we do have two harvesters, and that really helps. If one goes offline, the other one can pick up some of the slack. And with that, we believe the Public Works Department has been able to keep up largely with the intended schedule of 2 cuts per summer season.
Can you tell me more about the actual function of the machine and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So the machine is it has 2 paddle wheels, so it's basically like a large paddle boat. And then on the front, it has a cutter bar that has teeth that essentially cut the vegetation at a certain depth. You're able to adjust the depth. It's piloted by one DPW employee. Typically, they like to launch the boat no later than Memorial Day, often sooner in May, depending on resources that are available. And then it'll be on the water usually 5 days a week, often 6 days a week, again, depending on the resources and the conditions of the pond. What we have noticed is that the winters have not been as cold. There's less dieback, earlier growth in the spring. So what we are seeing is kind of conditions are worse earlier on. And so we are exploring ways that we can address that kind of early growth. But the typical schedule is for the boat to be on by Memorial Day, and then the first cut completed by July 4th holiday, and then a second cut done for the entire pond by the end of the summer.
And the pond being warmer during the summer is related to global warming, right?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has an impact. We haven't seen the same level of freeze, thaw cycle. Additionally, with the more intense storms, that's bringing in additional stormwater runoff that effectively is feeding the plants within the pond.
Right. Can you tell me more about the overall health of the pond?
Sure. So we have a pond manager who comes out and does all the testing, water quality testing. He's doing plant surveys related to the invasive species as well as the in-water, in-column. I think generally speaking, the pond is quite healthy. The water quality is very high. In terms of clarity, again, that's due to the efforts to treat the incoming stormwater. That's going to reduce algae growth. The reverse side of that is with clearer water, more sunlight is getting down to the bottom, again, encouraging that plant growth for the rooted plant material. So that kind of remains the largest challenge that we have in managing the pond is the rooted plant material. Ultimately the goal would be to replace that with native plants that don't take over the pond the way these do. On the other hand, the fish population is quite healthy. There are people fishing behind us right now, and that plant growth does provide good habitat for the fish. But again, we have summer weather that heats up and that encourages algae growth, but overall we're pleased with the results of the program. And yeah.
Tell me about the upkeep of the harvester. Do you know how long it'll last for?
Yeah, so with proper maintenance, we can make this harvester last 15, 20 years, if not longer. We did make some improvements on the harvester this time around that make some of the moving parts a little more stable, a little less likely to fail. The entire barge is made out of stainless steel this time, which will prevent corrosion. So we can expect this to last 10 to 20 years. I think what we found is that having extra parts on hand will allow us to reduce the time that it might be offline if there's a repair. So Public Works has been really fantastic about being able to get the boat up and running when it does malfunction.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what I might encourage people to do is review the information that's all available online that goes through the history, current status, and the metrics we use to evaluate the health of the pond. Come and enjoy the beach. It's maintained. It's a wonderful place to come and visit. And just understand that this is part of a local watershed, it's part of a regional watershed, and the things that we do on our personal properties ultimately can impact the health of the pond. So I think what the NRC has been hoping to have conversations about and help people have conversations about is how they're managing their lawns, and really reducing synthetic herbicides and fertilizers helps the pond. It helps the environment, and managing stormwater runoff. That is, we with bigger, more intense storms, we're seeing more stormwater enter the pond, and whatever is on people's lawns can be washed into the pond. So anything that people can do at home, even starting small, ultimately does have an impact here at Morses Pond.